Welcome to the Consulting Curve Podcast, the community approach to clients and consulting. Brought to you each week by Peter Selby, founder of BizDrivers.biz, a trusted profit and growth advisory to companies and consultants around the world. Tune in each week and learn how you too can take that journey from corporate to consulting. Anyway, welcome to another episode of the Consulting Curve. This is Kevin Pruitt, your host, and I am once again joined by Peter Selby. Peter, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Pleasure as always. Yes, I'm looking forward to today, actually.
So, a little personal note here. We were talking just before we hit the recording button, and Peter mentioned something to me. He said, "Yeah, I'm normally like biking or surfing, and I'm looking at myself thinking I am a loser. I just I am going to have to get a little bit more active, and Peter's putting me to shame. But man, I'm looking forward to. It's been a little bit since we caught up, and looking forward to another great topic in this whole space around advising in the new economy. And I was kind of looking back, and just we've done 11 episodes, previously in this series, and covered a lot of ground. And we're kind of trying to wrap up the third driver, in this entire, I guess, system that we've talked about since we started the series. And this one really is it's a customer choice driver, and it's really designed to look at just leveraging, the network and the community. And it really is, how do you utilize, or how do you develop, or how are you engaging a wider skill set, as an advisor, as a consultant. And just to get us started today, like, what does it mean to, when you use the word wide skill set, what are you talking about?
Great question. And look, one of the areas we see people leaving potential revenue on the table more than anywhere else is quite often consultants are relying on their experience to deliver outcomes for a customer. And, generally speaking, business advisors are pretty skilled people. They've got a lot of experience behind them, and they can solve a lot of problems. There's no doubt about that. But everybody gravitates towards some sort of central skill set, be it a financial background or a sales background or an operational background, whatever it may be. And what we see people quite often is not having an appetite to solve wider problems because it falls out their sphere of experience. And if you have access to a wider capability and can solve a wider range of business problems, of course, your practice can embrace a lot more revenue as a result, and can embrace a lot more customers. And if we think about the drivers of having more customer choice, we're talking here about more, not choices customers make, but having more customers to choose from. The wider set of problems you can solve for the customer, the wider choice of customers you can engage in the first place. So that is a fundamental area that we see people missing out on, just probably more than anywhere else. It is hard to pick because there's so many challenges people face, but it's certainly one of the common areas that we see people could be earning a lot more revenue, or certainly having a wider choice of customers, if they could tap into a wider set of solutions to solve problems. And that normally means experts at some level. So it's not just about having the tools, it's having the experience to solve a wider set of problems. I mean, you imagine if you're a finance guru and you're helping a customer solve some financial problems, but they've got a deep supply chain issue. What we see consultants doing is either saying, sorry, I can't help you with that, or, hey, I know this guy, go talk to him, or this girl, go talk to her, whatever it may be. Instead of having that skill set within his revenue stream, so or her revenue stream, should I say. So, that's what we're talking about here when we say wider skill sets. If you think of all the different business disciplines there are, and all the problems that customers need solving, and it's not as infinite as it sounds, because most businesses are struggling with the same things, then it's being able to have a much more business-wide approach to problem solving.
I was thinking
A
about
lot
that.
of waffle there, but did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was, kind of thinking about the business term TAM, what's the total available market or total accessible market, and it seems like it would be limited if you didn't leverage, this wider network, or this leveraging a wider skill set. And it's not just the capacity from an experience standpoint. It seems like it's also a physical capacity. You can have more than one person in your community, in your network, addressing problems together. So it's more of a team approach than this. We talked on multiple episodes about team versus lone wolf, approach. And I mean, I know you've got horror stories of people trying to take on projects as a lone wolf that quickly, I would say, they got over their head and probably damaged reputation, damaged their future ability to bid on projects, and just the list goes on.
Yeah, look, that's a really good point. So it's not just about widening the range of expertise, it's widening the capacity, the resource capacity. So again, you're not limiting yourself to delivering an assignment that would need 3 full-time people on it. You can now take that assignment on. And the other thing is about what you have inside your revenue stream in your business. So, a very common thing we see is that if somebody has a customer that's trying to solve a problem that the consultant doesn't know how to solve, to try and help their customer and do the right thing, of course, they'll connect them to somebody they do know that can solve that. But now that revenue's gone. It's gone to someone else. And you don't have that reputation of being able to solve that problem. So the access is on 2 fronts. It is being able to access, build a community around you that can either help you solve a wider set of problems or help you deliver larger assignments, or indeed even position for those in the first place. It can be a mixture of all of those things.
I think about the difference between being like a tradesperson and a general contractor. Even in the construction industry, I mean, a tradesperson can go in and they can do, fine carpentry, or they can do plumbing or electrical, or, just the specific task. But a general contractor kind of manages the project and, kind of oversees, and he utilizes the skill set of these tradesmen, to deliver, on the promise of, whatever the project that they happen to be working on. So it's the difference. And they also learn from each other. The consultants would learn from each other based on, a gap in their skill set. They can learn from other people that they would bring on board with them.
Yeah, look, I mean, I can give you a case in point. When we're helping other consultants, one of the ways we do that is bring them into our community, and our community has a wide range of resources, a wide range of skills and things that people can tap into. And we had a member recently deliver a project that took 3 other people to deliver it. And in actual fact, he didn't actually do any of the work. He managed the customer relationship. He's known the customer for a long time, and the customer trusts him as a trusted advisor, but he's now able to have conversations with his client about a much wider range of problems, and delivered a successful assignment that was a reasonable size. It had 3 consultants in it, all of which he picked out of the community. So what I'm saying here really is becoming part of some sort of community, where you can tap into resource that you trust. Because the other thing is, you've got to be able to pin your reputation on whoever's going to deliver that work for you. So it's loose connections or knowing of people isn't good enough. You need to have people that have worked alongside before, or at least have got a certain level of capability that you're willing to hang your brand on, if they're going to deliver work on your behalf. So that's kind of where you really want to try and form a trusted community of some kind around you. Now, I would also say it's not for everybody. If somebody's very, very niche and very specialist, and that's the only problem they solve, and that's their market, then that's not so necessary. But generally, our experience when we've been helping consultants is they're trying to solve multiple problems, and some they're very confident about, and some they're not. And the stuff they're not confident about, they tend to let go. And if you can capture that, you've got the ability to double your business overnight just by having that resource. So, in fact, probably more than that. You know, you could double or treble it overnight just by having that trusted resource around you.
Yeah,
But of course, you've got to build that community, and that takes
right.
time.
And
So,
they're vetted. I mean, you vet people before they come into your community too. So, I mean, you know
well,
who's
look,
coming
we've
in.
got a community that people can tap into. But what I'm talking about here, if you're going to build your own, um, there's quite a bit of effort required to do that. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
need you test it out slowly. So you bring someone else into your world, and you might test them and do a bit of work with them, and that might be that skill set covered. Then you've got to bring someone else in and test them out. And so building a community can take a long time, to work with trusted allies. You know, but it is becoming more and more. I don't know if common's the right word. It's certainly becoming more and more of a requirement, because businesses are looking much more for end-to-end providers. They seem to be losing the appetite to engage several different companies to solve a set of problems. Um, and they tend to, they're looking more and more to find somebody that can solve multiple problems. So I think the need is going to keep increasing. And my tip today really is for people to think about how they build that community around them. And it does take a lot. I mean, we have a community, we plug people in when they join us, but that's taken us 3 or 4 years to build. Oh, longer than that. It's taken years for us to build the community we have around us as a company, of both from both ends of it, actually, from customers and from um, consultants. We sort of have two communities that we've built over time. Um, we tend to be quite strategic with our customers. We're not and do time, have them as customers for years and do work with them on and off and repeat business as a model. So we built a customer community as well. But I mean, not everybody does that.
Right.
But just from experience, those communities take years to get right. So if you haven't got anything, or you don't have access to anything like that, then the sooner you can start thinking about how you do that, the better.
And you talked about earlier delivering on the promise, type thing that says, if you're taking on these larger, more complex, issues, you want to be able to deliver on the promise. You want to be able to solve a wide range of issues, because it's going, bigger projects are going to demand, a higher level of efficiency and expertise, and there's the stakes are just higher, on larger projects.
Well, and the reporting regime is higher as well. So if you're just going to manage the relationship and have others on your behalf, how do you give the client transparency of your activities over the previous week or the previous month or whatever it may be? So there's a bit of an art to that engagement process and how you report activities and making sure the customer's got transparency of activity and all of those things. So that, there's a lot to learn if you're gonna move into the realm of bringing more stuff into your revenue stream and being able to do assignments that take multiple delivery. Then there is a bit of an art to doing that. But I mean, it's like anything else, you learn by doing. But but certainly, that I think why communities take so long to build is you've got to hang your brand on it. So these people you're working alongside need to understand you and how you engage your customers and your ethos of doing business, and you need to understand theirs, and you need to be able to trust them. And they're quite often at your customers when you're not, because you're not there all the time, because they're managing the work for you. So there's a huge element of trust required in all this.
Another thing that I'm thinking about as you're talking, it's not just about the trust side of things. It's also about confidence, confidence in being able to deliver. And our good friend, I mean, I look at, I think of Brendan O'Keefe, who we interviewed, I think in episode 5, I mean, just seeing him over time, how his confidence has changed because he has the backing of the community behind him. So when he's talking to a potential client about, delivering on that promise, I mean, it's not just him, it's the entire team, running at the problem. It's not, he's not playing tennis, he's playing rugby here. I mean, he's got the whole
Yeah,
side with him.
that's absolutely right. I mean, one of the reasons when we're helping consultants, we take this community approach to it is because we've seen how effective it is when people go talking to customers. They're no longer talking about what they can do. They're really understanding the customer's problem because they know they can solve any problem the customer's got. So they go much deeper with their customers as a result, and the relationship goes a lot deeper as a result. What tends to happen when you're relying on your own skill set as your resource is you tend to filter the customer's problems to fit your capability.
Yep.
And that really limits the depth you go with the customer, and limits, you almost don't want the customer to wander into areas where you don't have capability.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go there and turn up a customer knowing you can solve any problem they've got, it's a very different confidence level. It's a very different conversation as a result. We see that a lot with our consultants, which is one of the key reasons we take this whole community approach. But we're not giving these tips out here because we're trying to promote what we do. What we've seen is that the community approach, in both the delivery and the customer approach, is so effective compared to trying to do it on your own.
Well, you were talking a minute ago about, just being able to deliver if you have a limited skill set. I mean, you're also limited in the solutions you can provide, and you will try to, I mean, it's almost like a false resolution here. You're going to aim the solution at something you can deliver, and it may be not even close to what needs to be, utilized to address the issue. That's just all I've got to offer, type thing.
Well, interestingly, what happens, again, it's not all the time, but it's common that we see it, is consultants focus on their solution, not on the client's problem. And, no matter, and in fact, the more technical people's solution and the more sophisticated it is, the more they tend to fall in love with their own solution rather than the customer's problem. And I don't mean that in any derogatory way. It's just a natural process. We see it a lot with software companies, actually, where they put so much engineering into their solution. They're not so focused on the customer's problem, but more about how their solution fits their world. Well, the issue is from the customer's perspective, and this is often a bit of a wake-up call for people. Customers actually don't care about your solution. They don't have absolutely no interest in it, and that can be a bit alarming for people sometimes. But they don't care. They just want you to solve their problem, and they don't care whether your solution's green, yellow, purple, blue, or whether it dances or whether it doesn't. They're interested in you being able to solve their problem and them have confidence that you can solve their problem. So it comes down to trust in two levels. They've got to trust you personally, of course, but they've got to be able to trust you can deal with the issue. So again, that's a tougher gig if you've just got your skill set to rely on.
Right. And that's such a great point you just made about the two levels of trust. I mean, we've mentioned it on multiple episodes about the whole idea. It's so easy to talk about the customer trusting you, but they also have to trust that you can deliver a solution. You can solve their problem. And Peter, it's a great topic that we've chatted about today. The just utilizing a wider skill set through community. And as we wrap up this episode, I'd love for you to give us just a kind of a quick story or case study, around this that really kind of drives the point home as we're wrapping up.
Sure. We've probably got, rather than homing on an individual, we've got multiple cases, I guess, but let me set the scene around that. We see time and time again, people, when they tap into a community, suddenly start to change what they think their business can do from a capacity perspective or a skills perspective, and rethink their consulting practice business plan, if you like, for want of a better term. So a kind of light comes on where they think, you know, I was aiming at this place in the market because of my experience. When actual fact, now I look at it, I've got a much, much wider market I can go after. And it doesn't rely on me being a specialist in this particular industry or this particular market. I can solve just about any problem out there. So now I can engage just about any company I want at any level I want. But it also changes people's perception of the size of companies they can deal with. And again, people doing consulting on their own, not always. I mean, there's some great examples of individual corporate advisors, but more often than not, people start to migrate towards smaller businesses because they feel they can deal with it from a capacity perspective. And when they tap into a community, suddenly the mindset changes around all this. And so I guess the case study here is that we see time and time again consultants delivering significant assignments with multiple resources when they would have never have dreamt of doing that a year ago. You know, it's just it changes how they think about the market, and that of course changes dramatically, lifts the ceiling of revenue. You know, there are these sort of earning barriers that people go through, and one of them is definitely there. If you're a lone resource and you're selling time, you hit a barrier, and the barrier is just about the same for everyone. And interestingly, we see that barrier is more or less the same country to country. It changes, it swings 10 or 20% just because earnings in countries swing by that amount. But,
right.
But the barrier is set because people run out of time. So, yeah, we have multiple cases where we now have consultants that are delivering much, much bigger assignments with customers. And I'm deliberately not being specific because I've got to start talking about names and companies and it's all a bit sensitive, but it changes their expectation of what they're going to do as a consultant and changes their expectation of where the limits are.
That might be a great segue to our next episode. I mean, we may want to bring on a special guest that has had the benefit of leveraging, you know, the wider skill set in the community and the wider capacity and the wider, you know, there's a third level of trust too. It's trusting that the people that you would bring on, they could deliver. You know, you mentioned it a little bit earlier. I mean, it's, you know, these are vetted members of community. It is my reputation that I'm putting out there, and I've got the people that, you know, the subcontractors or whatever, so to speak, that I'm bringing alongside to help me deliver on this project. I have to trust that they can do what they say they're going to do as well. So it is a multi-tiered, you know, approach when you talk about trust.
That's what makes building these communities so time consuming and so difficult. And, you know, we do quite a bit of vetting ourselves before we bring people into our membership, because they have to have a reasonable capability, but also be community minded. You know, people have to be able to trust them. The rest of the community is going to be able to trust them, and so are the customers, you know. So it is, and that's the point I was making before. If you're not currently in a community and you want to build one, allow yourself a lot of time to do that, because it's not as easy as it sounds.
Well, this is a great wrap up to the third driver, the customer choice drivers that we've talked about in this series, and the advising in the new economy, a wider conversation. But you know, what a way to wrap up around just how do you develop a wider skill set, and what resources can you bring to bear, you know, when you're going to work on projects and as
without giving your revenue away.
I mean, without giving revenue away, and actually not just giving away, but increasing your capacity to earn, you know, for sure. But yeah, it's been another great episode. And Peter, thanks again for just taking your time and in the middle of your day there, and really just sharing your expertise and in a very, you know, easy conversational way that we've had to chat on this, you know, during this series. I've really enjoyed just hearing the stories and really practical advice every time, every episode that we chatted. I mean, there are things that are really great takeaways for somebody that is really wanting to know more about the advising or consulting space. And it really is just a great series, The Consulting Curve, the community approach to clients and consulting. Peter, thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.